It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric is out. In case you just tuned in, Eric texted me yesterday. He tested positive for COVID again. He's got a fever, but seemed to be doing okay. He took pictures, for example, of the COVID testing. I don't know if he thought I wouldn't believe him. I think he was just surprised, like, come on, how many times have I had it? I think that's what he wanted to show me, that I got it again. It's like, oh, man. Because I know he wants to be in. He goes, what a time to miss. I go, I know. It isn't a time to miss because every day is a Super Bowl here. I mean, it's an insane Super Bowl. It's a bizarre world Super Bowl, but it's the Super Bowl of radio, of talk radio each and every day. All right, a bunch of stuff to get in here in the last hour of the show. I do want to play another Democrat, though. This is Democrat Jared Moskowitz yesterday going against the Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle. And after I play this here, I've got something to say about Democrats who all of a sudden found critical thinking skills here. All of a sudden you could listen to them and say, what's going on? Are they all off the drugs? Because when we see, for example, how they would respond to things like Hunter Biden, the censoring of free speech, how they went after the Twitter files, how they went after Matt Taibbi and Matt Schellenberger and Barry Weiss, how they go after people who are trying to do the right thing, and how they tried to sell the impossible, how they tried to sell that Biden was fine, how they lied about Russia collusion for 3 years, that Trump colluded with the Russians to hack the 2016 election, complete lie set up by the Hillary campaign. And all of a sudden you see them being honest and critical thinkers, and you're like, okay, they have the potential to do so when they wish to, but then they get into the lie narrative just like that. But here's Moskowitz yesterday with a pretty good point.
Director, I just want to give you an honest assessment of how this is going for you today. Did you happen to catch the hearing many months ago in education where there were a bunch of university presidents and Elise Stefanik asked a very easy question and couldn't get an answer? Did you see that hearing?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay, well, let me tell you, it didn't go well, and the short end of that story was those university professors all resigned. They're gone. That's how this is going for you. This is where this is headed, okay? This is, I don't know who prepared you for this. I don't know how many times you've testified in front of Congress. But a president was almost assassinated live on television, not just for Americans, but for the world to see. And this being your first opportunity, I understand there's an ongoing investigation. I understand there's things that you can not talk about. But the idea that we're getting less than you did on television is something that Democrats, Independents, or Republicans are going to find unacceptable. My high school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, was on the list of mass shootings that Representative Raskin held up. That very day, the school resource officer, a police officer, did not run into the building. He hid in the stairwell while the shooter was in the building. He stayed outside, never helped. Okay. He also directed other officers who showed up on the scene not to go into the building. When it was determined that the failures in response and training, and that the sheriff fired nobody in his agency, Governor DeSantis then removed that sheriff. I supported the removal. So here's my question. You said there's going to be accountability. I understand you don't want to give us names. When you say that, are you telling the committee that once it's concluded, you're prepared to fire the people on the ground who made poor decisions that day?
I'm prepared to take the actions necessary.
No, that's nonsense. Okay. Accountability. The failure was human. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they failed that day, and a former president was almost assassinated. Okay? Are you prepared to fire the human failure on the ground? Yes or no? When you have the names of where those failures were, they're people. It's not like a piece of technology failed. It was people who failed that day. Are you prepared to fire them?
I don't have an answer as to whether.
Well, then how can there be accountability if you're not prepared to fire someone? And the reason why your name is going to be the person who's held accountable, the reason why members in this committee are calling for resignation, and I join in that, or for the president to fire you, is because you're saying there's going to be accountability, but you can't commit that people are going to get fired. Let me ask this question a different way. If Trump had been assassinated that day, if the gunman had succeeded, okay, would you have come and tendered your resignation?
I would still be sitting here because I would want to ensure the integrity of the investigation.
Totally understand. That's a fair answer, that you would have set up that process. But would you have had the honor to come in front of the committee and say, former president was assassinated on my watch, there should be new leadership?
I think that I have admitted that there was.
No, that's what I'm asking. Would you have tendered your resignation if he had been killed?
That occurred on my watch, and I am accountable for that.
Okay, but would you have tendered your resignation if he had been killed?
I think that I've admitted that I've taken accountability and will take responsibility.
Okay. Well, let me ask I want to follow up on Representative Connolly's question, in which he asked about guns, and you were not willing to commit that makes your job harder. This is not about the Second Amendment.
You know, the thing is there with her, she's not taking accountability. But I just wanted to play that because you can see that when Democrats want to be, because if you watch this, the Democrats, AOC was pounding on her. And so you can see that when they want to have critical thinking skills and connect the dots, they can do so. They can't do it when Republicans say, why does the Biden family have 20 different fake corporations set up with checking accounts that go all throughout the Biden family that have enriched the family to tens of millions of dollars, and the patriarch of the family happened to have been vice president and was going to run for president, which they knew? Why is there nobody who was suspicious of those things on the Democrat side, or they just refused to acknowledge it? Why are these the same people that voted 99% that a man can be a woman because a man says so? And these are the questions that I have, because it seems like a lot of these Democrats are going point by point by point, doing the exact same things that we have said. And I'll say it again, too. I don't ever want to hear again from a government official, yes, I'm taking full responsibility for what's happened here. How? Well, by taking full responsibility, which means, well, I'm accountable for it. How? You see where we're going here with this loop. Well, I'm taking full responsibility and therefore will be held accountable. How? Because that's the most useless thing ever said in government. You know, the people who take full responsibility, they're not there to tell you they're taking full responsibility, because they've taken full responsibility and said, I failed here miserably. There's no way you cannot justify this. And everybody knew this, 24 hours later? What? 130 yards on a roof? Direct line of sight to the president? And you're saying that's not your territory? Well, then you're fired. Oh, wait a minute. What? Oh, it was a sloping roof and you didn't want a Secret Service agent to get hit? Let me see the roof. That's the slope. And then we all saw the memes. Santa Claus not delivering down the chimney because of the slope on the roof. We all saw the cow on the, walking on the, the slightly, the slight slope on another roof on another home. I mean, it fired. You're gone. You're completely and totally incompetent. Wow. It's just amazing. All right. In other news, the New York Post story. Wow. I'm waiting to see if other media back this source story up from the New York Post. Remember, the New York Post, who used their source stories, and they were correct completely on the Hunter Biden laptop. Top Democrats threatened to forcibly remove Biden from office unless he dropped out. And they set him up to fail at the Trump debate, sources are telling the New York Post. Let me read a few paragraphs for you. Operatives at the very highest levels of the Democratic Party threatened Joe Biden with forcibly removing him from office via the 25th Amendment unless he stepped down, sources told the New York Post. The well-orchestrated palace coup to stop, that's in a quote, by the way, which means it came from one of the sources. The well-orchestrated palace coup, in quotes, to stop the faltering president seeking re-election has been in place for weeks, but stubborn Biden fought against it every step of the way, a source close to the Biden family told the Post on Monday. The insider also made clear the anger, paranoia, and frustration that Biden displayed as the party elite circled around him and piled on the pressure. Part of the elaborate strategy to remove Biden from the race, as he announced in a shock letter posted on X Sunday, was allowing him to debate Republican candidate Donald Trump last month on live TV in Atlanta, that they knew he would fail. During the car crash 90-minute debate, Biden appeared confused, slack-jawed, and at one point he froze up with his shocking performance, turning the tide against him. Now, the only question I would have here is it was the Biden people that set up the time for the debate, and everybody questioned at that time, why are they doing the debate now? Why are they doing it so early? And that had come out. We know that was one of the narratives out there. Well, they're doing it this early in order to get him out. But that was viewed as people outside his campaign that had directed it, and these were people inside the campaign that the family that the family approved of also the day and time for that debate. That would be my question there. Because they had to know what the news cycle was saying. The news cycle was saying that the elite in the Democratic Party want him to debate in June because they want him out. Now, that's what this source is telling the New York Times. Well, we knew this back then, didn't the family? And was the family okay with it? Did the family want him out? That we haven't heard that anywhere, that the family wanted him out. That debate was a setup to convince Democrats that he could not run for president, the source said Monday. As calls for him to bow out mounted, Biden insisted he would continue, but the party bigwigs threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The amendment allows a vice president and members of the cabinet to declare he is unfit and force him to step down. The White House and representatives from the Democratic National Committee did not immediately respond to the Post's request for comment. Although Biden immediately endorsed Vice President Kamala, this is another interesting point here. Let's see if this comes true. Although Biden immediately endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic candidate for president, the source said Democratic delegates will be strongly encouraged to instead back Arizona Senator and former astronaut Mark Kelly for president at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in August. I wouldn't be surprised if the poll numbers continue the way they are right now. Now, the point is, are they still going to hold that virtual roll call on August 7th? If they do that, then she's in. And it looks like the delegates, you had Pelosi, yesterday endorse her. The only ones that have not are Schumer and Obama. But I've always believed all along, if they were able to get Biden out, they know how bad of a candidate Kamala Harris is. And so if you wait a week or two and her polling numbers are worse, and they're making it clear. Adam Schiff did the other day. He made it clear. He's only out because he was polling bad. They didn't put him out because his cognitive abilities have waned where he shouldn't be president of the United States, but they were willing to, these bigwigs, apparently, according to the source, use the 25th Amendment to kick him out. Some holdouts still have yet to endorse Harris as Biden's successor, despite less than a month until the convention and only 4 months until Election Day. Most notable among them is former President Barack Obama. So there's where we are right now. Wow. Following the debate, first son Hunter Biden suddenly became more involved in his father's day-to-day business and insisted upon attending every official and unofficial meeting. The source said Hunter felt Joe Biden was being set up, and he was very concerned about his father. These officials, were not on Joe's side. Well, did the family know? Did Jill know, and did Hunter know they were going to use the 25th Amendment to kick him out? I still have questions about this source's reporting. 866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
We are now getting into the last two-thirds of July already.
And we don't have any bad weather in the Midwest in sight.
Agriculture Department meteorologist Brad Rippey says he's looking for it, can't find any. The decent weather is, of course, showing up in continued decent crop condition ratings. Looking at corn, we did lose 1% out of the good to excellent pile. We gained 1% in the poor to very poor category.
That leaves us this week at 67% good to excellent, 10% very poor to poor. That, of course, compares quite favorably to last year at this time when we were sitting at 57% good to excellent and 13% very poor to poor.
And for soybeans, no change over this past week.
68% good to excellent, 8% very poor to poor.
Considerably better than last year when only 54% of beans were rated good to excellent, 14% poor to very poor.
So all in all, we're looking quite good in a lot of our key production areas.
Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric is out sick today. You and me, and coming up following the bottom of the hour, we'll hear what James Comer had to say following the hearing yesterday with the head of the Secret Service. And also that story from the New York Post that said that the elite, that's how they referred to it, the elite of the Democratic Party threatened to use the 25th Amendment to get Joe Biden out, that they were going to use it, and apparently convinced him. That's what a source told the New York Post, according to their lead story last night. So with that in mind, you have a U.S. senator, Republican senator out of Missouri, that came out and said we need to use the 25th Amendment. And then I'm reading here Margot Cleveland from, I believe this is the Federalist, who says the same thing. It's time for the 25th and explains why. That more on the way.
We have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Eric has the morning off. He's under the weather. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you choose if you can't listen live overnight. Okay, a couple of audio cuts here. We had told you about the New York Post story that came out, I believe, late yesterday afternoon that said that Biden was forced out. The source tells the New York Post, and the Democrats threatened him with using the 25th Amendment, that they were forcibly going to remove him from office, which will bring us to the 25th Amendment here in just a moment. But that probably will hit a little bit of the narrative that exists out there, that Biden did this for the good of the country, that he is a selfless person who cares about the country, and he should be honored for this great decision that he made. Ron DeSantis was on Fox News yesterday, and they were having this discussion.
This notion that the media is trying to peddle that he's like George Washington refusing power for the good of the country. He had no choice. They were knifing him in the back. The New York Times was going after him. The big donors were going after him. And a Democrat, look, Republicans, New York Times isn't attacking me that I must be doing something wrong as a Republican. The Democrats, the corporate media is a huge part of their party. And when you lose the media, you're really a dead candidate walking. So he had no other choice. This is not George Washington.
They're like, we're not going to give you a presidential library, and we're going to make sure your son goes to prison for the rest of his life. And he says, fine, I'll leave. And they're like, oh, what a statesman.
I'm sorry, that's good. Oh, my golly. Oh, my golly. Oh, my golly. All right, I want to go to, this is James Comer on Fox News last night. He was asked a number of questions, but led into it by saying, why doesn't Joe Biden fire the head of the Secret Service?
Well, Joe Biden hasn't fired anyone. That's our frustration. No one's ever held accountable in the Biden administration, not for Afghanistan, not for the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Look, to say under oath that being 130 yards away from the highest point isn't in the range of the Secret Service protection of the leading candidate for president of the United States, not to mention the former president, that's unacceptable. That admission is unacceptable. No one who's a minimum wage security guard at a mall after closing hours would agree with that assessment. I mean, she has to go. She did not demonstrate today her ability to give the American people answers to what happened, much less confidence that it won't happen again. She did not demonstrate to me or anyone else that she has the ability to lead an organization with a $3.1 billion budget and over 8,000 employees. I mean, this was a 5-hour hearing where she literally didn't answer any questions, and for once, the House Oversight Committee had unanimous agreement. Every question by every single member of the committee on both sides of the aisle was a question I think every American would ask at the cafe or at church or at a ball game, and she failed to answer any questions. It was a disgrace, and she should resign. If she won't resign, then Biden should, for the first time, terminate someone.
Which, what do you think? If there was ever a case, this would be the case. I mean, Mayorkas was another case, but Mayorkas was doing the dirty work of the president. The president wanted exactly what Mayorkas was doing. When Mayorkas lied and said the border was secure, that's the same stuff that came out of the White House, and everybody knew that the border wasn't secure. So Mayorkas was following the orders of the president, so of course he wasn't going to be fired, even though he was impeached by the House. In this case, I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with the president right now, except the fact that you had the Senator Schmidt of Missouri was saying we need to use the 25th Amendment. Michael Moore isn't saying use the 25th Amendment, but Michael Moore is saying the president needs to step down because Kamala Harris will be much stronger as the incumbent president than she will as the vice president, which there may be some credibility to that argument. Or there might not be because she's so bad of a candidate. But I was reading here Margot Cleveland from the Federalist, who said time for the 25th Amendment. Goes, in announcing he would no longer be the Democratic presidential candidate on Sunday, Biden professed he was doing so because he believed it in the best interest of his party and the country, because he's doing it because he's a patriot. While Biden did not elaborate further on his reasoning, he promised to address the country later this week with more details about his decision. When he eventually addresses the nation, Biden will likely portray himself as a modern-day hero, withdrawing from the race to protect America from the existential threat of Donald Trump. Whether Biden mentions his horrible debate performance remains to be seen, but if he does, the president will surely frame the spectacle, as he has over the last 3 weeks, as a mistake, a bad night, or caused by jet lag or by Trump's off-mic interruptions. Left unsaid will be the fact that party insiders and Democratic megadonors forced Biden to step down out of fear Trump would win the presidency again. These reasons, however, are all misdirection, seeking to distract the country from what they witnessed during the debate, a commander-in-chief suffering from a mental incapacity. Yes, the public spectacle of the president's cognitive impairment prompted Democrats to conclude Biden could not win re-election, and the conclusion that Biden could not win re-election led to his withdrawal from the race. We said it more simply than Margot Cleveland did. We simply said they got caught lying. Oh, the other thing in the New York Post story that I had mentioned earlier, where they said that Biden was threatened with the 25th Amendment from many of those Democrats who talked to him, was the fact that they've all known for a couple of years. Well, we've known for 4 years, but they admitted they've known for a couple of years that he has been losing his cognitive abilities. And that's the one thing, too, that I hope the Republicans, I believe they will use over and over again, which is Kamala Harris was part of the conspiracy to lie about the president. And that's one of the reasons they probably won't use the 25th Amendment, because then the admission would be there. Well, they might have used it in that case. I don't know. With Biden, I don't know whether they would have used it. But I don't know if you're going to get support for it now. Instead, what matters is that Biden lacks a stable mental capacity. That matters because a man lacking in lucidity, even if only at times, cannot discharge the powers and duties of the office of the president. As I wrote after the debate, whether caused by age, dementia, or Alzheimer's, matters not. The President of the United States cannot discharge his duties if he lacks the cognitive ability for even a fraction of the day. The Commander-in-Chief must be able to command the executive branch 24/7. Biden's withdrawal as a candidate is not enough. He must resign the presidency, or the cabinet must invoke the 25th Amendment. Democrats and their media lapdogs may pretend otherwise, acting as if Biden merely lacks the stamina to campaign and that his family does not affect his ability to, and his frailty, does not affect his ability to serve as commander-in-chief. But during the debate, Biden was not lacking in vigor. He was lacking in lucidity. Soon after the debate, big-time Democrat booster George Clooney confirmed Biden's mental incapacity by announcing that the man he saw at the June fundraiser was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. Speaking of the debate, Clooney told Democratic Party leaders in his New York Times op-ed to stop saying that 51 million people didn't see what we just saw. Yes, Democrats, including Joe Biden, and the media will pretend the country only witnessed a frail, elderly man. Not so. During the debate, Biden unmistakably showed he was lacking in mental competency. That disturbing performance confirmed the numerous earlier instances in which Americans saw a cognitively challenged president. Add to those facts Special Counsel Robert Hur's conclusion that Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. Hur's report further detailed Biden's shocking memory lapses and recommended against charging the president for mishandling classified documents. And Attorney General Merrick Garland's refusal to release the audio recording of Hur's interviews with Biden only cements the perception that the tape is even worse than the special counsel portrayed. So there you go. Will that push continue? I don't know. You've got Republicans that don't want her to be the incumbent president, but you also have Republicans that feel that the nation is in peril because this guy's in the decision, he's in the decision-making seat. And he doesn't have full cognitive abilities 24/7. And you're going to get more and more saying he needs to be out. Plus, I think Republicans also have confidence that if Kamala Harris did get in there, she'd be horrible at it. But yeah, what a first couple of days of this week, huh? Well, we're living in time. These are historic times. Everything that's going on here. When you look at the campaign overall, though, right now, if it's Kamala Harris, and I don't know if it is going to be or not, we know all the scuttlebutt out there. I do believe that if the polling is horrible for her by the end of this week or beginning of next week, that whole New York Post story thing about, okay, let's get Mark Kelly in at the convention, or tell her she can't run. I guess it would have to be an open convention at that point. That's what you'd be doing. That would be a mess if that happened. But I don't think they care about the mess because I do think that the powers that be made sure Biden was out because they believed he couldn't win. And I think a lot of these same people are showing their support for her until they realize she can't win, and they hope to have an answer just through the polling in the next 10 days. But if she polls worse than Biden 10 days from now, I don't think they're going to have any problem saying, sorry. And I know you're going to get howling that you've got, from the DEI crowd, but I don't think at that point it's going to matter. They want to win. You saw how quickly they went from being furious at Biden to being, what a great statesman. What a great statesman for giving up his office because we told him, we'll destroy you. Wow. I'm really looking to see if that New York Post story is verified by anyone else. Because if that's true, if they were using the 25th Amendment against him, if Pelosi and the Clintons were using the 25th Amendment, we're going to boot you out. If Obama was involved in that, wow, that's a story. And we will find that out. Because if one source is telling the New York Post and they're a legit source, then that's going to get out to other media outlets. 866-98 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric's hopefully returns tomorrow. I know he tested positive for COVID. He had a slight fever, and what are the rules for COVID now? I don't even know. have to wait like 5. I know he's not going to wait 5 days. I don't want him to wait 5 days. That was the old rule, wasn't it? Something like that. After you don't test positive, it was a certain number of days after. I don't even know whether they do that anymore or not. But hopefully he is okay and returns. We've got so much to talk about because none of this is ending anytime soon. I mean, the whole Kamala Harris thing. I mean, the big news that she got all these, she got the number of delegates to support her that she needs to get the nomination. Now, what are the polls going to say over the next couple of weeks? That will be, I think, the final determination for Democrats.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.